I'm delighted to say to reflect on the big stories of the day. In the studio, we have political strategist Peter Barnes and senior fellow at the Centre for Social Justice, Matthew Torbitt. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Matthew, can I officially uncancel you?
Yes, if you wish.
On Talk Breakfast, because you experienced something of a setback on your visit to the Labour Party conference, which should have gone swimmingly because you are a Labour Party supporter.
Well, you would hope so.
Yeah,
and you would hope that... Well, I went to go and see the leader's speech and couldn't get in. Into the secure area, and they said my pass had been rescinded. Conference services knew nothing of it. I then got a letter saying we've made the very tough decision to cancel your pass. I've had no explanation from the Labour Party. I have emailed twice. They have given somewhat vague statements to the press, but not to me. So I will be... I'm looking into legal action. I'd rather not get into a position where I sue my own party, but I think reputational damage is something to be considered very serious. And I can't help but think, without a proper reason, it is because I've been helping other people who want to be the next Prime Minister. And the fact that we're doing very badly. So whether it's a case of clipping my wings because Andy Burnham had to make a bit of a retreat over the week, that week, or whatever else, I don't know is the truth. But, you know, it's very disappointing.
What does it tell us about the culture and the management of the party at the moment that a loyal supporter like yourself should be banned in that way?
Well, they would say I'm not a loyal supporter because I've not done the party line. I think if there is nowhere... Surely the place to talk about airs and grievances about the Labour Party is Labour Party conference. I met with members, we spoke about things that are going well, things that are going badly, and that's surely the place to do it amongst people who are also members. That wasn't the case. This has always been the way, though. It's deeply factional. The people involved are quite nasty and peevish, and therefore... This is where we are. Is
that exclusive to politics, or is it a Labour Party issue in particular, do you think?
I can't speak about other parties. Peter may know more about the Conservatives.
Peter, what do you think?
It's a politics-wide problem. This is the thing. The tight control that the parties want over conference is incredible, and I think it's because all of these party conferences have been about the leadership. The Kemi one, Keir Starmer in particular, it's about making sure that the party is together. They can't have any separation of message. And like Matthew's very good at actually being able to say, well, Starmer should be doing better, and which is not an unreasonable position. It's not like you've come out to call for his resignation or anything. I saw this and I thought it was absolutely extraordinary decision by them.
Well, speaking of extraordinary, we had an amazingly heated debate at 6 a.m. this morning with my previous guest, Graham Davis, who implied that Nigel Farage needs media training, created the perception that the Reform UK leader is a dangerous chancer. This is a voice note from Pete the Mole. Take it away, Pete.
As far as I'm concerned, those calling in slating Nigel Farage are the ones that need some sort of training. Farage is the only chance this country has now. Starmer is putting this country down the drain. We need an election sooner rather than later. Nigel Farage needs to be in 10 Downing Street. He's going to have a hard job. It's going to be a bloody hard mess to sort out that Labour have left. The debt Labour have going to be left the country with is going to be humongous. So he's going to have to make some hard decisions, and the country is going to have to go with this. But there is nobody else apart from Nigel that can help us now.
Tarquin is in the capital. Tarquin, is Nigel the answer to this country's problems, or is he a dangerous chancer?
You mean Saint Nigel, of course, Mark. You mean Saint Nigel.
Just a matter of time.
Indeed. Well, I'm not that he's a Catholic, but if he... I think... No, well, of course you'd expect his critics to say that, but the fact is, you know, for anyone that gets up on the podium at their conference and calls him a snake oil merchant, what do you expect for ad hominem attacks? Yeah, that's all they've got left, isn't it? They've done the racist card. That's completely blunted now. Nobody is a racist. It's completely ridiculous. Of course he is, in his own words, Mark, he is our bridgehead to democracy, real democracy, not this uniparty thing that Rupert Lowe has written some brilliant documents of late. I can't remember the title, but check them out on how to revisit our constitution, basically, Mark. So, yeah, no, he is the man because he will give us the bridgehead to Dunkirk in reverse. He will get us out of Europe and it'll be the bridgehead back to Dover to clear the shores. Yeah.
OK, Tarquin, stay there. there you go, Peter Barnes. You're quite a critic of Nigel and Reform UK. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, I'd like whatever he's drinking at this time in the morning. My lord, I've never heard such drivel with respect. I have to admit, this idea that he's going to be the great saviour makes absolutely no sense. Nigel Farage and economic competency have never been in the same room. You want to talk about the level of debt? The amount of money you're going to need to do even 3 or 4 of the vague policies we're getting from Reform is astronomical. Also, the idea that he's some kind of right-wing saviour. He wants to nationalise and expand the welfare state. Last time I looked, not conservative policies in any stretch of the imagination.
He's going to save about 200 billion cancelling indefinite leave to remain from the Boris wave. He's going to scrap net zero, and he's going to cut waste.
Okay, scrap net zero. Let's look at this one. We have to have certain markers to be part of certain international treaties, such as the TPPT one, which is going to potentially has the benefit of billions of pounds for the UK. We would have to pull out of that because of the kind of scrap all net zero. So which is more important? This is the thing. It's not thinking beyond the end of your nose.
Well,
it's really easy.
The cost of net zero is higher than any income from the CPTPP.
At the moment, but not in the future.
Sorry, Peter, the cost of not doing net zero is actually more expensive than doing it. If you look at any evidence coming down the traps, that therefore is the issue.
Well, when is net zero going to come good for the country and start saving us money? Not in my lifetime.
Maybe not. I don't know is the truth. All I know is if you look at any evidence done by the committees on climate change, it will cost us much more money in the long run if we do not.
Our entire economy is geared around the green economy.
There you go. So, Tarquin, Peter and Matthew aren't having it. They're not having the scrapping of net zero, the welfareism, the nationalisation of industries.
Yep. Well, gentlemen, I have to say that none of the above will matter at all if the one man that's vowed from day one to pass a Great Repeal Act and get rid of any chance of the digital ID. Anyone who's for that is for me and for the rest of Britain.
That I do agree with.
Get ready.
I do agree with that 100%. But what I will argue is that, you know, it's not just about the one single policy. The problem is there is no coordinated idea behind reform. It is lurching from policy to policy, and I say that very vaguely, but I think it's more along the ideas that they are reacting and not leading. It's very different. There's a difference between noise and leadership. Nigel Farage is great about making a lot of noise, yet he hasn't led on anything, because the minute something gets difficult, do you know what he does? He runs away. Let's look at UKIP, look at the Brexit Party, all of it. He runs away. So the idea you're getting some reverse Dunkirk, I'd like to see
This is a guy that stood there for years at Dover, calling out the illegal immigration. He was called a racist, he was called a fascist, called a Nazi.
So we're a lot of people. He's not the only one. And also, he's very good. He's very good at giving
I don't remember anyone else calling it out.
I love this idea that he's somehow a big victim. He's the biggest snowflake I've ever seen in professional politics. He plays the victim card at every single moment. This idea that the government has pulled his security, no, it's not. It is a lie to argue that. It is absolutely unbelievable.
He should have the same security as the Prime Minister, because he's going to be our next PM.
Oh, good Lord. That's just a ridiculous statement.
No, I really feel that very strongly.
I can't.
The polls would suggest, Peter...
the polls would suggest at one point Jeremy Corbyn was going to be Prime Minister.
Sure.
So should he still get the same level of security?
Yeah. If you're the Prime Minister-elect, most definitely, because
we don't have a Prime Minister-elect.
Corbyn got 3 million more votes in 2017 than Starmer did in 2024.
Yeah, but that's rather irrelevant due to the fact that that's not how our system works. We don't have, just because you've got the most votes, you win. We have a first-past-the-post system. We have a parliamentary democracy. We can't just keep saying we love all these institutions, and then the minute we don't like the kind of the maths of it, we start fiddling the numbers. That's my big argument when it comes to all this kind of stuff. You can't defend Parliament and then want to ruin all the rules of it.
Herbie in Harrow. It turns out Nigel Farage is a snowflake, says Peter Barnes.
He's joking, of course. Good morning, Mark.
Morning.
The thing is, Nigel is a very, very good speaker. He mixes with the people. He talks to the people. I've known him for years. I've been on campaigns with him, and he does the job which he's there to do. You've got to remember, he was an MEP for a lot longer than some of the MPs that are in Parliament today. So he's got far more experience than most of them put together.
So how is he anti-establishment if he's been a part of the establishment for all this time? This is another thing I don't understand. It's a great narrative, but it's just not true.
Matthew Torbitt, the small matter of delivering Brexit. The
Well, he
biggest
didn't.
constitutional change to the country in 100 years. Herbie, go for it. Herbie.
Hold on a minute. Yes, it wasn't who delivered Brexit. Remember, the Conservatives didn't deliver Brexit because they didn't come out with a deal that could have got us the result that we wanted.
No, but Herbie, there's no Brexit without Nigel, and old Peter's trying to say that Nigel hasn't done anything.
He's the biggest threat to Brexit.
Well, he's not empowered to do anything. That's the problem. You know, he's got other people that are supposed to got the results over. Yes, we got Nigel got Brexit, but he wasn't empowered to do anything. And this is where people keep knocking. They do knock people that are successful, and Nigel's been successful at the moment. They don't like it. They're jealous.
Okay, Matthew Torbitt. Stay there, Herbie. Matthew.
He could have been totally empowered to do something if he wanted to stand to be Prime Minister. He never got himself together. If he was really that bothered, I actually think it suited Nigel Farage, and also why I've always been long of the theory. I don't think he wants to be Prime Minister deep down, because what happens now is anything you've ever done, you've ran away from, as Peter said. You may have campaigned for Brexit. You didn't deliver it. You didn't stay around to deliver it.
There would be no Brexit if it wasn't for Nigel Farage.
That's true. I didn't say that. But I didn't say that. There may not have been. However, he did not deliver it.
Well, that's not his fault.
The political equivalent, Mark, it was the political equivalent of trying to get eggs out of a baked cake. Yeah. And he didn't want to stick around to do the hard yards. If he ends up Prime Minister, he's going to tarnish his sort of legacy amongst his supporters.
Well, I think critics of Nigel have got egg on their face, and they will do in 3.5 years' time. What is this fresh hell? Has the world gone mad? Peter Barnes has just said that Nigel Farage, wait for it, is a threat to Brexit. Yeah. We'll discuss that next. Hi, Mark. This is Curtis from Lingfield. Peter, I've said it once this morning. I'm going to say it again. Get yourself down to Specsavers because you've got something in your eyes. You, my friend, are in denial. You're the exact problem with this country. I bet you think people putting flags up are racist.
No, I think putting flags up is great. Getting all worked up over it is pointless.
Peter, what's happened to you? You've become very left-wing. You've become very woke. You are a classic example of the modern Tory party. You love open borders. Now you're all about net zero. What's going on?
Well, you know, I've started to come around to the idea that maybe just shouting about things isn't leadership, and actually we have to think about something longer than the end of our noses and stop kicking the can and deal with the issues. The problem is all we ever do is get really angry and we don't do anything.
Net zero's an insane idea.
Yeah,
We've got to scrap it unilaterally.
But just pulling out of it, just say we're going to scrap it. One is not a policy because, like we said, our economy is so ingrained in the green economy that just ripping it out would put billions at risk.
Yeah, fine. It'll be less billions than what net zero is costing us.
But not immediate. You've got to start thinking immediate term, middle term, long term. This is how policy is done. This is how grown-ups
this is how the Conservatives govern.
This is how they should have governed.
But
they didn't.
Look
now,
at Trump.
Get me wrong.
Trump's torn up the rule book.
Because there's a presidency. He has executive orders. Nigel Farage cannot just wander into number 10 and start saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He will not have that power.
He will.
If he doesn't get a majority, he's got even less power.
No, I agree with that. What I think Nigel needs two things. I think he needs a massive majority of like-minded MPs, and he needs 10 years.
Oh, I think when you say like-minded MPs, do you mean people that will just do as they're told?
Yes.
Because I thought you're after radicals. I thought you're after free thinkers. I thought you're after people that want to... So you want to be the uni party?
No, we need UK...
Is that the admission there, that the reform needs the uni party?
Uni party 2.0. What Britain needs is MAGA 2.0. Look at the loyalty to Donald Trump. And I know he's crazy, and I know he's a narcissist, and I know he's maybe not the nicest human being on the planet, but he's delivering for the Americans, Matthew. He's improved the terms by which America trades with the world. He's got the economy growing. The stock market's a record high. Tax cuts, not just for the rich, but for everyone.
The economy
Trump is delivering.
Inflation. No. Let's not buy the snake oil.
The stock market is at a record high. The US economy is growing, and it's about to go even higher.
So I think I'm sure those queuing up at the food bank are over the moon about that. I think there
were food banks under Barack Obama.
And I didn't say there wasn't. I think there is a constant issue going on here. I think he's done very well with the border. I think there is movement clearly in the Middle East that we should all be tentatively pleased about. However, inflation is record high, unemployment is up, and even loyalists such as Marjorie Taylor Greene are saying it's his fault the shutdown is happening. So all is not necessarily well in MAGA world.
Well, he's had to recalibrate with the tariffs, which has proved to be a triumph. And by the time of the next election, America will be cooking with gas.
Maybe
Right, quite literally as well, because they use their own energy.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to the tariffs, just look at the climb down over China. He had to deliberately climb down and make certain concessions over the China tariffs. So it's not exactly a kind of rousing rendition of woo Trump. I'm a huge Trump. I was a Trump fan in 2015.
Right.
I've been a big supporter of his. But what I don't really acknowledge this idea that everything is wonderful under Donald Trump. It's not. And as for the MAGA stuff, that is more fractured than the reform base. It's ridiculous.
Now, we've got a caller here, Daniel in Epsom. Daniel, your reaction to what Peter Barnes and Matthew Torbitt have said. They're not having Nigel at all. A dangerous chancer, apparently.
Yeah, well, most of their side of the media are saying that kind of thing. But if I ran for UKIP in the past, I've met Nigel quite a few times. I've shared a pint with him in the Westminster Arms. And I can tell you that the one thing that they won't understand is that man believes every word he says, and he doesn't change. He's got integrity, and he's got so much integrity that most of the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, they don't even know what the word means.
Can I respond to that really quickly? One quick question.
Slowly.
Nigel Farage said that deportations were not possible. Now he's running around saying it's our only hope. You want to talk about integrity? That man flip-flops more than a pair on the beach. It is absolutely astonishing to me. The guy would not know how to stick to a policy if his life depended on it. He moves with the wind. I would say he's a political weather vane, but I don't think there's any spinny bit left.
Okay, I'll tell you what, let's make it interesting. These shows are recorded, okay? So, Mark, have a little bet with him. I'm gonna have a wager with you.
Love this.
That Nigel was going to be our next Prime Minister. He's going to be stood behind the lectern. He's going to stop the decline and degradation. We're going to scrap net zero. We all concede mass immigration from the third world is destroying the fabric of our country, and I think he's going to do something about it. And I think people like you are going to be out of work. As a political weather vane, I don't think you can see any way into the future. I don't think you know the thoughts and feelings of the British majority. And I think
you vaguely overestimate what you mean by the majority, due to the fact that if you look at most of the polling post-conference, Labour went up, Reform stayed exactly where it was. This is the point. You also have to point out that a -29 favourability like him to Nigel Farage. You can keep saying the country love him. Most evidence says it doesn't.
Matthew, I mean, I think Peter is a Tory in denial. They all are in denial, okay? Because the bottom line is, yes, Labour have got their problems. I get that. But the Tories are done for. And I think that there's a lot of shy reform voters out there who don't tell the pollsters that they'll be backing Farage, and in 3.5 years' time they absolutely will.
I think there probably is some shy reformers. I don't think they're going to get 400, 500 seats as some polls suggest. It's going to be quite the earthquake they expect. I think the likely outcome at the moment, I would say, would be a hung parliament, and the likelihood is the Tories will have to do a deal with reform to remain relevant and obviously be in government, or Labour don't lose as badly and the Lib Dems do them a favour and help them out. I think we'll actually be more divided than ever. And I think Nigel, like many politicians, can be full of promises and milk and honey and whatever else. I think, unfortunately, if he does end up Prime Minister, he's going to inherit a worse economic situation than Labour did.
Yes, I agree with that.
I think,
can we all agree on that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But I think, therefore, what does he do? And what does the country do? And he goes, I can't afford our £10 billion deportation plan anymore. It's going to become a pressure cooker environment, and is he the man to be able to deal with that? Or does he begin to do what he does very well and blames Whitehall, blame institutions, it's not my fault?
The excuses are already being inbuilt into the narrative as to why he's not going to succeed. It is absolutely astonishing to me.
Let's get Lorraine on the show if we can, Kieran, because she's got an interesting point to make. How about this from Steve? Good morning, Mark. Now I know that Nigel is over the target. Peter, instead of scoffing at Nigel, he's quite animated. First they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they attack you, then we win.
Oh, I can't wait for him to win. Because everything we've just said will be proven 100% correct. I think in the same way we needed to get this Labour Party out of our system, we need to get the Reform Party out of our system.
Simon says the PM has ultimate power. After the global elite tell the Prime Minister what they want the Prime Minister to do, these governmental people aren't fooling anyone. Lots of people are dumb enough to go along with the government ideas, but others know better. I mean, it's a very interesting one, isn't it? This could be good news for Labour if the Tories do pick up some momentum, Matthew, because that obviously splits the vote on the right, doesn't it?
I think so, but the fact that we're even talking in this way shows me the abject failure that we've been in the last 14, 15 months of government. And I would actually say the rise of Nigel Farage is due to the utter failure of both of the main parties. Ultimately, we aren't reaching out to our base as we used to. People feel left behind and forgotten about. We are governed by people who aren't in touch with their communities and the majority of people. Therefore, there has been a vacuum where these people weren't Reform voters. They were Labour and Tory voters who feel that they've been failed. We shouldn't even be speaking in these terms. And I think unless there is a big shift, I know there was lots of talk of Kemi being safe now and Keir being safe now.
Yeah.
I think the bar was so low.
Yeah.
If they could get through conference, it was a success. I'm sure leadership talk will continue into November when we have a bad budget and Kemi has a flat response, and therefore we continue on over more.
The rinse and repeat cycle will continue.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think you make a good point there. Every point we've had from callers and yourself, Mark, has always been the Tories this, Labour that. But I thought Reform weren't a protest vote, because everything is based on the fact that you've argued for something on the basis of not being something. Well, that is not a pro choice, a kind of pro vote, is it? You're launching everything not on Nigel is wonderful because of this policy. It's Nigel's wonderful because he didn't do this and this.
Well,
that is a real point of contention between the argument and reality.
And actually, it's 2024 again. There was no love for Labour on the doorstep when I was knocking. They just hated the Tories more. And I think what we're now going to possibly end up with is we really can't stand the Tories, they're irrelevant. Labour were furious with them, we can't stand because they've shafted us whilst in government. So now we've got this guy that's left, essentially.
Mark says, Louise, Peter is a closet liberal. Sometimes you just need balls, mate. How about this? Why are folk obsessed with how Farage will manage the economy compared to what Rachel from Accounts has done? Yeah, she's doing such a grand job. Not, says Stephen. These two on now have as much imagination as a light bulb. That's David, who's not happy at all. And one particular texter, I've lost the text now, but they said that both of your partners are sleeping with someone else this morning. As
Well, you know, you can't win them all, Matt.
No, because you're a pair of wusses. I tell you who has got a pair of balls, and it's Lorraine in Chelmsford in Essex. Morning, Lorraine. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Oh, good morning, Mark. I just wanted to make a point. I was listening to Sophie, and then the caller going in, remarking about the two-child benefit cap.
Yeah.
Now, the removal of that will only apply if you're going out to work. The idea is to get people off benefits and out to work.
Exactly.
So
the two-child benefit cap will be scrapped under Reform, but it will be targeted towards people that get out there and put in a shift.
That's correct. Yeah. So it's to give people a bit of room to be aspirational again, rather than just solely relying on the benefits system.
I'd love it if it was that. However, how are you going to do it? That's the big thing. It's really easy to say we're going to target this, we're going to focus on that. My question is how? What's the limits? What's the caps? This is the important bits of detail. And you can say we've got 3.5 years till the next election, but we are in that much of a dire economic situation. I need to know that the guy who's in number 10 actually has an idea, because the problem is that the last general election is we let the guy in because he wasn't the other one, and it turns out he has even less of a clue.
But Lorraine, these people are not stupid, are they? I mean, you've got Zia Youssef, who's a former top entrepreneur. The same with Richard Tice. Nigel Farage worked in the city. These people understand money.
I think the idea is with Reform is to remove benefits from illegals here or foreign-born people that have never worked here and put anything into our system, to cut down on this net zero nonsense so that we've got a little bit more money to look after our own people.
Yeah, most definitely. Lorraine, I really appreciate your contribution. Do call me again soon. Lots of truth bombs there. Thank you, Lorraine. We'll catch up. Have a great weekend. 0344 499 1000. Lads, stick around. After this, we're going to remember the legendary Ricky Hatton, and we're going to continue this conversation. Is Nigel ready for power? This is a very, very heated debate we're having. Nigel Farage, is he ready for government? Some people think he's the answer to Britain's problems. Others, including my two guests in the studio, think he's a dangerous agitator. This is from Sue. Nigel should have been involved in the Brexit negotiations, but the Tories would not have it. Matthew and Peter are talking rubbish. Nigel is sensible in not divulging everything for the useless parties to try and scupper his plans. Simon says, I wasn't a Reform voter. Reform will be in, and hopefully with a swathe of votes. Rob says, Peter Barnes, your guest, yawn, yawn and yawn again. Nigel will be PM and Peter Barnes can't stand it. A typical Tory who's in denial about the state of his party. Perhaps he'd be more suited in the Lib Dems. Are you worried if the Tories do recover ground, and I'll grant you they had a good conference, are we back to square one with a split vote on the right and another 5 years of Starmer?
I still think Starmer's on track to win the next general election. I genuinely do, because of the split on the right, but also the fact that I don't think people like Nigel Farage. I also think one thing the Reform are underestimating is this kind of rainbow coalition, that if actually most of the kind of left-wing parties get together, whether formally or not, and have some kind of loose agreements between standing candidates in certain areas, they could quite easily bully Reform out of the vote entirely. I don't think they've really thought that far ahead, and that's a big problem for them. But for me, I just don't see how we can accept the guy with no plans, the guy who shouts boring at a journalist for asking a reasonable question. The moment anybody asks him a question, he's been attacked. And yet you're saying, oh, he's keeping all these things quiet and not giving them a chance for scrutiny. That sounds like a man terrified of criticism. OK, well, listen, we'll come back to this conversation. Front page of the Sun newspaper, live forever in our hearts, Ricky. Liam Gallagher's farewell kiss for Ricky Hatton. Oasis star Liam Gallagher bids Ricky Hatton a touching farewell yesterday at the boxing legend's star-studded funeral. The singer kissed his hand before placing it on his pal's coffin as he left Manchester Cathedral, where Oasis hit Live Forever had reduced mourners to tears. Earlier, thousands lined the streets to pay their respect to their world champion son, who died last month, aged just 46. It's such a loss, an icon of sport and of British culture. Let's get reaction from another legend, former European boxing champion Spencer Oliver. Spencer, welcome to Talk Breakfast. How well did you know Ricky?
Yeah, I knew him very well, Mark. Thanks for having us on. It was an emotional day yesterday. Me and Ricky go back way back to the 90s. Actually, we were boxing together around that time, and then my career finished in the late 90s, and I covered all of Ricky's career. Travelled everywhere with him, over to Vegas, and we had some great times in boxing and out of boxing as well. He was the guy next door. He was the people's champion, and he was just a lovely human being. It's the sad loss, and what a beautiful send-off he had yesterday. You know, if there is such a thing, you know, I think that the turnout he had was quite incredible. You know, you had the likes of, as you said, Liam Gallagher, we had Freddie Flintoff there, you had Wayne Rooney there, Brian Giggs, just to name a few. Just showed you what a guy Ricky Hatton really was. People loved to be around him. He was full of humour. You know, a big laugh to be around, and it is a sad loss. It really is. And he had cut through. He went far beyond his sport of boxing, didn't he? Yeah, absolutely. You know, he like I say, he touched with everyone. You know, Ricky because he was a guy that his feet never left the ground. He was a kid from a council estate, and he never forgot his roots. And I think that people sort of connected with that. And you know, he was that guy that he liked to go down his local social club, have a pint after filling the O2 Arena, or taking 30,000 fans over to Vegas to watch him box. You know, the likes of Floyd Mayweather. So yeah, it was a very emotional. No one expected it. We all know that Ricky had troubles coping with life after boxing. I think that mental health was a big part of his life. Yeah. And he talks about that quite regularly. And we all thought that, look, Ricky had been through his dark times. We knew that, but we thought he was coming through the other side. It was such a shock to everybody, not just in the boxing world, but you know, everybody close to him and around him. You know. So there were a lot of emotions in the cathedral yesterday. Most definitely. Given his incredibly colourful and charismatic personality, Spencer, it's easy to forget what a gifted athlete he was. Absolutely. You know, I remember Ricky going right back to the amateur days. Like, he burst onto the scene, winning the ABAs at a young, tender age of 18. And you thought, wow, this kid is going to be big. We never expected him to be as big and become a two-weight world champion and you know, touch the nation the way that he did. But he had an incredible career, like I say, through the amateurs, you know, and through the professional ranks. He was one of those guys that's just confidence who's class as well.
Well, your class, Spencer, it's been a privilege to have you on the show, and we can only unite in our grief at the passing of this incredibly special man at such a young age, and what a contribution he's made, not just to sport, but to British life. Spencer Oliver, thank you for joining us, former European boxing champion. There you go. They don't make them like that anymore. I think we should all go and have a Guinness tonight to remember that top man. Do you remember Matthew Torbitt, how he'd basically get really fit for the fight, go and win it, and then straight on the Guinness and let it all hang out for a few months and then back in the ring again?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, Ricky Hatton was a normal bloke off the estate that lived out his wildest dreams, and he really was the people's champion. He built communities like no other boxer I've seen since. And on a more serious note, suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 50 and under the age of 35. Ricky had his struggles after boxing, and I think there has to be a strategy in place for sports people who don't get that rush from crowds anymore, what they do after retirement. And also, the sooner we have a men's health strategy in this country and truly talk about the issues that men face, the better we all will.
There's thousands of Ricky Hattons out there, many of whom are not celebrities, who are struggling, Peter.
I couldn't agree more with Matthew. I think we have let this issue fester, and I think it has been at men's detriment and our society's detriment. And more important, I thought it was a really good point made, that actually he kept his feet to the ground and remembered where he came from. That's a huge point.
Lads, love having you in the studio. Come back and see us soon, Peter Barnes and Matthew Torbitt.